Hey, framework friends, Kathy Ligon here. I'm really glad to see you guys today. I'm excited about this topic and really want to dive in deep to what's happening around our cost structure right now. It's a challenging time for sure. And I know that if you're like everyone else I know, I don't think I've heard anyone say cost structure versus tuition rates and revenue are a breeze right now. So I think you're in good company if this is a hot topic for you. I'd like to invite you as we go through the next 30 minutes to interact through the chat or the question bar. We love your comments as we go. I'll do my best to address them live for those of you who are live. If you are live, just know that you can pick up the recording. If you ever can't make one of our live times, certainly pick up the recording later. The majority of our framework users are doing just that, and I'm sure that they're taking advantage of whatever quiet moment after closing time that they can to learn and grow and think about their business differently. Also, I'd like to thank everyone who gave me recent feedback on their experience with Framework. We've had Framework out into the community for about 2 months now. I went to you guys recently to ask how your experience was going and got some wonderful feedback. I'm really happy that some people have been able to use the features, the what if features, to consider your tuition rates and your discounting. I will do a subsequent sprint on discounting, but just know that discounting is as important, and in some people's cases, just even more important than just looking at the tuition rates. And so take a look at the feature where you can see the impact at different amounts of your tuition changes, but also you can go to the discounting page and see the effect of both at the same time. So you can make some decisions around tuition rate increases and possibly eliminating some discounts, either in certain age groups or across certain categories. So one of the most powerful features of Framework is to use those features to make some decisions about where you're going with your tuition rate structure and with your discounting. So I got some great feedback there from people who are using that. I'll also make one more comment there that you can use those features without going through the full-blown input of all your expense data. So as we expected, people are getting a little either delayed or they run out of time and they aren't getting to the full-blown benchmark, because to input the expenses is what takes people the most time. We built it specifically so that you can put in your classroom information with its tuition rates and its discounts and immediately get the reports on those two very critical features. So don't let not be having enough time to go through the whole input keep you from using those features to make some decisions around our topic today. If you have questions about that, let me know. Also, based on your input, we have a second version, some enhanced features coming out in just a few months. Some of those that I'm excited about will give you a little more flexibility around your part-time programs. We have found out that people were super creative, and I love this, during COVID, and what you allowed people to do in part-time programs. And there's the need for more than one part-time program in each age group. So we're working on that a little bit. We'd like for you to have an Excel export feature so that you can take some of your reports and your benchmark out of the system and use those in different ways. So your input matters. We're working very hard to make it a more user-friendly experience for you. We're also excited about some new offerings coming up in the next 9 months. During the summer, we have Framework out with these sprint sessions. We're very excited about how those are going. In the summer, we are going to launch QuickBooks training specifically for early education clients. So there's some great QuickBooks training out if you're a QuickBooks user, but we have created a curated QuickBooks experience for people who want to know how to exactly work with it and make it work for their business. And don't worry if you're using QuickBooks and it's messy, and over time, maybe a lot of people have had their hands in it. We have some resources to help you straighten that out. That's another offering. In addition, we're going to do some financial one-on-one coaching, and either you can bring your financial statements to that experience and we'll help you goal set and then help keep you accountable and give you ideas on where to go with it. Or we have a team who will produce your financial statements for you in a format that matches framework and allows us to coach you on where you can make improvements. Big features along with this will be the ability to track grant funding and how it's being spent. That's a big issue in our financial reporting right now. And a lot of states, the grant money's coming through. It's required that you document very well what you're spending it on. And we want to be sure that you guys have a mechanism for doing that. So, and then we're looking toward 2023 and some possible mastermind groups, all built around growth and financial concepts. So just know that we are trying to step up and support you guys with a very fast financial changing picture in our industry. So you guys know that our financial model is 25 years old. Up until COVID, it had very few changes. I think it had 4. And you've heard me say this before, but those were employee benefits, the way we advertise, our credit card fees, and our working a little bit on our supply costs. But over time, very little subtle changes happened in our financial picture. At the beginning of COVID and since, it's just been like we've thrown all the marbles in the air and we're trying to collect those now and figure out where they best fit in. I have some very strong opinions about how you should think about your financial picture now. And that's why I wanted to start this series with a conversation about your new financial picture, grant monies flowing in, and how tuition rates align with that. So let's get started on this content. Okay, so we're struggling with increased costs. I'm actually hearing this from people every day. What are you going to do about supply costs going up? I can't hire teachers at where I used to hire them before. So let's step back just a minute and look at where we are and where we've been in the last, let's say, 5 years. So even before COVID, I was trying to think of the word, salaries for people, or the pay rates for people, that's where I was going. Pay rates were increasing. So the demand on increasing pay rates was happening before COVID. I know for 2 or 3 years before COVID, I would say to people, my guess is you're paying 5 to 10% more than you used to, and that to hire new people. And that doesn't just mean that your incoming pay rates are higher. That means you have to elevate everyone. So you can't start paying more for people and they're at the same level of your veteran employees. So as the demand for increased wages happens, it increases all of the wages. Of course, when your wages increase, then naturally your payroll taxes increase. So this has been coming on. It's been happening for 3 to 5 years. COVID, of course, exacerbated that. During COVID, our supply costs went crazy, our cleaning costs went crazy, and some of that is starting to fall back in shape. Also, the number of hours you were having to spend and increase the number of people to work with new protocols like parents dropping children at the door, temperature checks in the morning, not combining age groups, lower group sizes. Those were causing some increase in the number of hours that you were spending. So there was a natural increase in your salaries there. What I'm hearing really strongly from people lately is, of course, supply costs and gas costs that have risen incredibly. And we're hearing constantly about the increase with food costs that are coming up and more supply increases. At the same time, I'm hearing from people, are you going to change your model? Costs are going up. What are you going to do about the model? Well, here's where Kathy's very strong opinion comes in. I don't want to change the model that says rising costs mean that we can't be as financially healthy as we were before. So we know that costs are rising. We know that business is more difficult. We know that you're having to pay more for teachers. We know that your supplies are up. We know that your gas is up. We know you're spending more hours. We know that world is much more complicated. But because of that, I don't want to compromise on what I believe is the financial health of your school and of you. So we have always said that we want in a financial model for you to put at least 15% on the bottom line just to be able to reinvest in your school. So when you look at a financial statement, remember that that does not include capital improvements like parking lots or playgrounds or new furniture or a new bus or paint or it also doesn't include growth. It's a fantastic time to consider growth of your company. Can you pick up another school? Can you open a new school? Can you expand into a public school after school? Can you do a collaboration with Head Start or Early Head Start? These things take capital. And so for you to be able to take advantage of those opportunities means that you need the capital to do that. So in my opinion, you only begin to get to financial health with a 15% bottom line. And if you aren't exceeding that and taking really good care of yourself financially and putting yourself first, you can't possibly take care of all these people and moving parts and rising costs and decisions you have to make. You can't possibly do it. So in order for you to be financially healthy, I can't in good conscience just say the industry will never be as financially healthy as it was before. I have to say our expenses have increased. I don't think they're going to decrease. I'd love to know if anyone here disagrees with me, but I do not see pay rates going down. I do not see a drastic decrease in prices of supplies, maybe gas. But I think we're just going to see things cost more to operate. I think the demands on our business will be greater. At the same time, the beauty of that is that some of the supply in the market has decreased. So unfortunately, some people did not make it through in their business through the COVID period. And some people who were not performing well just couldn't financially survive. So at the same time, I'm hearing from people, I can't hire, the pay rates are too high. I'm hearing, have a wait list. I'm seeing more demand than ever. So that's a really good problem to have. What would be a really bad problem is if we were hearing costs are skyrocketing, there are no children to come to my school. So in an environment where we have an abundance of enrollment, that is the time to think strongly about tuition rates. So constantly people are saying to me, I have a wait list. I can't keep up with the demand of the pay rates. And I ask questions about tuition rates, and either there's a hesitation to increase tuition, or there's the hesitation to increase it where it needs to be increased. On the other hand, I see some providers really using this time to set themselves up for the future. So let me go back to the last recessionary period, 2008, 2009, into 2010. And then I understand in that time, we really struggled for enrollments, and parents and families were struggling. And so many providers felt the weight of that and didn't increase tuition rates. I get that. I supported that at that time. I thought that made sense. But after that recessionary period, they dragged and they didn't increase it. They did increase it, wasn't enough. We recommend somewhere between 3 and 5% in an average year, because your costs are going up that much in an average year. And we had sellers between 2010 and 20 who had gotten so far behind in their tuition rates that they were barely making money, not only not supporting themselves, but not having value when they decided to exit. And so what we have to do is take pretty bold changes right now and make bold decisions. So I've seen on the flip side of that, very many operators during the COVID period took several tuition rate increases. Some took 2 a year. Now I'm hearing people be pretty aggressive for fall of 2023. Now is the time to think about that. I have clients doing 10 to 12% tuition rate increases. And again, it's very specific to you, what your cost structure is, and the best decision for you to balance out tuition rates with your cost structure and also make some discounting decisions. What I want to be sure you do right now, whether you have or not, is make some real solid decisions for fall of 2022. I think I said 23 a minute ago. You guys knew where I was though, fall of 2022. And I want to be sure that you're prepared for that. You're set up for it. If you have a wait list, it's a no-brainer. Wait list means there's the demand. Maybe you lose some people, but maybe you lose some people. And I don't mean to sound cold-hearted. I have children who have children in childcare, and I understand their struggle. They have a lot of advocates. I'm your advocate because you don't have many. And I'm saying that you won't be here to serve them if you don't make strong decisions for the fall. So I want you to really think about where you're headed for your fall in tuition rates. Now, I will also say that in addition to discounting as a hidden danger, I feel that I'm so grateful that the industry has the grant funding that it has right now. We have clients who are going to get a lot of cash in the next year or two, and I'm thrilled for you. I do not want you to be dependent on that money stream in the long run. So I want to stop right there and say that again. I want you to only use grant funding for short-term relief and to set you up for the future or to grow. Do not depend on it for your operating structure. Instead, I would like for you to think of it as separate. Now, in some cases, it says you need to spend this money on salaries or staff or bonuses. Think really hard about if I increase pay rates with this money, then in 18 months when it goes away, can I still support those pay rates? The answer would be, can you then increase tuition rates enough to do that? A better strategy might be to give one-time bonuses to your whole team. So they're not dependent on the pay rates and you're not dependent on the grant money. So we are producing financial statements that show grant monies and grant expenses below the operating line, because again, I don't want you to get dependent on those. I want you to think about your cost structure and where you are financially before grant money, and be sure that your tuition rates reflect the actual cost of services. So what if you've gotten behind on your tuition rates? So I have a couple of favorite strategies that I like. If you feel like that you really either were too busy or didn't want to do that to parents during COVID, and I know you're spending more for staff, and we know what to expect on supply cost as they increase. So what can you do now? Well, first of all, I believe that not most, I'm bold enough to say all of the providers that I'm speaking with that are taking bold tuition rate increases are not having pushback from parents. And I think some of the reason for that is just the beautiful work you guys did during COVID. I think not only did parents come to respect and recognize you in a different way, I think the world did. I think businesses did. I know for sure that the selling activity has increased because more buyers want to be in our industry, and they're throwing money at it and paying greater dollars than they ever did before for business and real estate assets. I believe that that's part of the reason. Also, like we said earlier, their choices for care are not as plentiful as they were before. And so you're in a market where there's usually maybe not scarcity, but there's more scarcity than there was before. And there's increased cost. It's time for you to consider your tuition rates again without grant funding. And one of the strategies I really love, so if you said to me, I really feel like I'm 20% behind where my tuition rates should be, I would say to you to look at this in a progression of three. First of all, what is the amount you can increase your tuition rates? I might not suggest you do 20% at once. I think that's hard to swallow. Maybe you can do 10% across the board. Maybe you can do that in conjunction with a second strategy, which is to eliminate some of the discounts that the industry is naturally moving away from. And again, more on that in the next sprint, but play around with those in your framework system. And again, you can just input the data to play around with tuition rates and discounting without going through the full-blown input. So if you're not using all of the features, definitely use those features. The third strategy would be, can you go up a certain amount on current customers and then go up to the amount you need to on new incoming customers? You're not treating them badly. They're not in your system yet. They can make a decision about affordability. And the other beautiful thing that you can do is you can communicate to current families what you're doing because of increased wages and increased cost. We're finding ourselves in the position to need to increase tuition 20% because you are such a loyal customer. We're going to grandfather you in. You are now a legacy family. I love that term. People are special. They've been there. They supported you. A lot of people were supported so well from their families during COVID. And anyone new coming in will pay a different tuition rate that's 20% higher. Now, some common questions are, yes, the record keeping is more, and it's just something that I think we have to deal with. It's important enough to do that, even if you have to allocate additional resources to it. I regularly get people say something like, won't parents talk, and is that fair? Of course they'll talk. And yes, it is fair. I think it's perfectly fair to reward people who have already been with you. And, you know, as their child ages up, maybe you don't decrease their rate, so they eventually catch up, but you give them some relief and you make them feel special in the meantime. So love, love, love that strategy. It's also a strategy you can take if you decrease or eliminate any discounts. Maybe you don't take them away from current people, but don't give them any more. You know, if you decide to eliminate your free or vacation days, grandfather that in and don't give that to people who are coming in that weren't previously enrolled. So those are some of my very favorite strategies, but start somewhere and communicate well. So the next thing is craft the communication to the parents to tell them all the great things you're doing, all the reasons for the change, and what you need to do, not just to keep the doors open, but to continue to create fantastic programs and care for their children. So communication is really key in this. Okay, so I want to let you guys know, and again, we have about 5 minutes, and I'm happy to take a question or two. Because of everything that's changing in the industry, we're going to do a global webinar on April 13th to talk about the changing economics in our industry and what we're going to have to do to adapt. So I'll talk about some of this content along with some other things. You as a person in the Hinge system should get that. As you guys can see, the Hinge team is limiting global webinars to 4 a year because we're really trying to pump our resources into you guys who are our framework users and be sure that you get new content every other week. But this is our quarterly global webinar on April 13th. So take a look at that. We'd love to have you there. I'm sure that if that time doesn't work for you, that you can pick that up later as well. So there is my wonderful Hinge team. I'm so proud of this group of people and the work that they're doing on behalf of you guys in the industry. So any comments or questions from you guys? I'm sure you frameworks members are rocking it on your tuition rates. Okay, no questions or comments from this group. Thank you for joining us live. Like I said, if you're a live user and you want to go back and look at previous recordings, I think this is our 4th sprint since we launched Framework. You can get those online and go back and look at those. If you ever can't make one of our live sprint events, then just know that you can pick it up later and take a look. Reach out to us on your framework page if you have a comment. We would love for you to go to the content page and put your comments and suggestions for everyone to see. We've got a lot of great content there and a lot of good participation and sharing ideas. I'll throw out some questions there for everyone to share their ideas on tuition rate increases. If you don't find the content or the comment you need there that helps support your particular situation, just reach out to a Hinge team member and we're happy to support the work that you're doing. We love you guys and everything that you're doing, and we want to be sure that we help you stay prepared for this next phase of our industry and the next phase of your life in it. So thanks for joining. We'll see you soon. You guys take care and be well.